It was a bombshell announcement by Hartford Mayor Pedro Segarra and has upended, folks, the search for a Hartford school chief. We're here now with a threesome here of education reform people. Alex Johnson from Concan, Jim Starr, Chief Hartford, Corey Brinson, City Councilman. So the mayor kind of at the last minute now, the day of the announcement for a new school chief, Christina Kishimoto, the mayor says, hey, wait a second, guys, I think we should have had an open search, a national search, and now everything is sort of falling apart here. Your thoughts on this, the timing of it?
I'll go first.
Yes.
I think the timing, it was late. I think the mayor could have spoken up.
Why was it late?
Sooner in the process. Politics. It's an election year. I'm sure that as the some would call it a coronation was getting closer and closer, the pressure got ratcheted up, and finally sprung the mayor into action. I will say I do think the mayor's concerns were valid. Mm-hmm. I do think that to say that there were only two contenders and Principal Sullivan only had one interview, I mean, it wasn't much competition for the job. And I think in a democracy where things should be transparent and it should be a competitive process, to interview two people, I think that wasn't really an effective search, but those concerns should have been raised earlier in the process.
All right, let's take a look first of all at the soundbite, then come back and find out more about the politics and what's next. Let's take a look at the comments by the mayor.
I have made a request this afternoon to the Board of Education via each of the Board of Education members to reconsider their search for superintendent of schools and to consider a national search for the selection of the next superintendent.
All right, listen, so where does pressure come from? Let's talk plain, guys, because this was the day of the announcement, the day of the coronation for a new superintendent. The mayor gives a press release or a press conference 2 or 3 hours before. There was pressure on him without question. Who put the pressure on the mayor?
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm not sure.
Who do you suspect? You guys know. You guys suspect something. Who do you suspect?
It could be anything. There was a process that was put in place. It was 8 months in the making. It was 4 months during its implementation process. It was put together with 13 people, 8 of which were the board members themselves.
Right.
So you had a whole process. Any pressure that may have been there would have been on the board itself. The board were part of the search committee. The search committee completed this process, and while there was only 2 candidates in the process, there wasn't a coronation here. They had in the search committee itself will lay that out. The process needs to conclude itself. And while there's some discussion with the national search, the process itself called for a national search. If somebody capable if the search committee itself did not find somebody who was capable in serving.
So you had no problem with the process. Corey Brinson, you did, right?
Yes.
Okay, Alex Johnson, what do you wait? Okay.
Because I think the problem here is how do we move forward, and what's best for the kids. And the problem now is that the signal that's been sent is there was a process in place, and it was a 2-step process. The first part was look internally, and it turns out at the end other candidates fell out. There were only 2. And if a candidate is not found internally that meets the search committee's criteria, then go national. But because of what's just happened, if you go national right now, who's going to apply? I mean, because we're in an election year,
right.
We don't know who the next mayor is going to be. The next mayor will be reappointing a majority of the board. I would venture to say that the kind of leader that Hartford needs is going to wait. So
you raise a good point here.
So I think, to Jim's point, this process does need to conclude, because I don't think you can have a national search that will be viable until after the election. And so I think move forward now, and if you found a candidate that's great, then go for it. And if it becomes an issue in the election, it plays out that way. There's going to be a new board.
How about this? The process is already compromised, because as you're saying, if they go to a national search, who's going to apply? If the same group that picked Kishimoto picks a new person nationally, then it's going to call the question, well, why didn't you guys do this thing in the first place? So now they're compromised. So what happens here? And if you stay with the Kishimoto, if you don't have the search, then you're defying the wishes of the mayor.
Well, look,
this is a mess.
But the
Jim, you're shaking your head. Good. Jim, shaking your head. No. Good.
The process needs to conclude itself.
How? How?
The search committee needs to consider the recommendation from the earlier saw. Consider that. Take action upon that. They can choose to accept that consideration, go national, or not, and then move forward with the process. And that's actually what's been laid out this afternoon.
But will it have integrity?
But look,
absolutely
from a political
integrity.
standpoint, the mayor has made his point. He's expressed his position, and if he could also now say, look, I made myself clear, but I'm not chair of the board. I chose not to do that.
But he controls 4 of those 9 votes, I believe, right? And he has power on his board, no question about it. Corey Brinson politically. Go ahead, keep going.
But at the end of the day, what is best for kids in Hartford? And it's not a good thing right now not to have clear leadership, right? And that's been thrown into turmoil. There is a way to get this back on track, but I think it involves, moving forward with the process that's in place right now. And you know what? If someone feels that the leader is not the right leader after the mayor's election, then look, it's an open question.
But isn't it too late? Let me pin you guys down in about 30 seconds. Do you stay with the choice of Kishimoto, or do you go outside and do a meaningful search? Alex.
Stay.
Jim.
Conclude the process. Absolutely.
So stay with it.
Yep.
Corey.
Keep talking to Principal Sullivan and keep talking to other people who were interested but didn't apply for fear that applying would be the end of their careers at the Board of Education. So while I know other people may not agree with that, I do think that you can't have a meaningful search and only look at 2 people, where the person who didn't get the job only gets 1 interview.
30 seconds.
I get if those are the issues, then those need to be called out, frankly. And those issues that he just described, the mayor didn't even address those yesterday. He said there was only 2 candidates. He talked about that there should have been more. You can't bring that up right now. And so you've got to conclude the process. You've got to move down doing that. If there are other issues in there, let's bring those to the table. And if he's invalidating a process that's in place, let's call that. You can't
not
do
to
that.
have strong leadership right now with so much going on at the state level, funding at stake. We can't afford this.
Were you surprised, 5 seconds, were you surprised at the timing of the mayor? A bright guy, savvy guy. Were you surprised at the timing of his announcement? Corey?
Yes, it was late.
Absolutely surprised.
I think he surprised everybody.
All right. Okay. We're going to have you guys back. We're running out of time on that. So we'll find out how to conclude and bring you guys back in. All right. Thank you. When we come back, folks, the NCAA has dropped the hammer on UConn men's basketball program. Sports law attorney Robert Romano stops in for a visit to talk about the ramifications. Don't go away.